This piece I'm using right here provides a 5/8 inch rise to the ball, and or you can flip it upside down and mount the ball on the opposite side, and it's a 1 1/4 inch drop. So right now I'm giving a 5/8 inch rise from the OEM hitch height. The only thing that caught me off guard is this is my standard Kurt hitch pin here, and it's got one hole in line with the way it's bent here. So when you slide it in, the way this rests on the hooks here for the safety chains doesn't allow you to get the clip in at an angle without damaging or scratching up the diffuser. No matter which way you turn it, if you turn it up, the hole is going to stuff the clip, this long clip, right up into the diffuser. What I need to do in this situation is order something like this, which has a circular cutout all the way around for the clip. Okay, so here we are with the full setup and the quad, the Honda Rincon, strapped to the 4x7 trailer. So I had to add a zip tie to the wiring because it was a little bit long, but it's strain relief now behind where the safety chain catches. So it has some slack so I can still turn and not pull the wires. Still cleanly secured under here to my custom diffuser mount. Link in the description below for that 3D printed part to mount to the bottom of this diffuser, and holds the 4-pin Kurt receiver plug captive. Super easy to install. I'll leave the link in the video description for the full installation of the hitch and the wiring on this car. If you're interested in learning how to install the hitch and do all the wiring to power your trailer lights on a 2022 to 2024 Honda Civic, either the sedan or the hatchback, check out my video. I get pretty detailed with it in the description below. This video here is going to be dedicated to just the towing experience and the setup. Obviously 1 7/8 inch ball, class 1 hitch. I just did a quick gut feel and pulled this up and released the ball and lifted this by hand. Definitely have less than 200 pounds tongue weight on this because it's not too hard for me to pull up at the moment. If I had to estimate, I'd probably be around 100 pounds tongue weight right now. But we have the quad strapped down. It was an extremely tight fit on this 4x7 trailer. I have about an inch of clearance on each side. But yes, only other mods to the car is the PRL high volume intake and the PRL rear motor mount with the EPDM bushings to stiffen up and reduce the engine movement. That will help a lot with towing because the engine will not be flexing around in the car a lot when hauling this large load here. The main mod that I did that I think will help with towing the most is the SI rear suspension swap. I have the SI springs and SI dampers from a 2022 Honda Civic Si on the rear of this car. So you can see, even with all its tongue weight on the back hauling 1,000 pounds right now, the trailer is about a little over 300 with the plywood I added. The quad is mid 600s dry, and I have a full tank of gas and the box added on the back. So it's probably sitting around 700 pounds, close to it for the quad. So we got a 1,000-pound trailer load on the car. I'm about 215 pounds. So total weight this car is going to be towing on this trip right now over factory is about 1,215 pounds, give or take. That's pretty much at the limit for what the car recommends. But being that we have the 6-speed manual in this car, it's really all clutch control and that's really the only wear item in the car, besides brakes obviously, that's going to potentially have more wear than driving without a trailer load. But just want to show that this, you know, this is my daily driver, and I'm pretty pumped to get on the road here, and let's do a POV drive and see how this thing does. All right, I don't know if you can see in the rearview mirror, but that thing looks like it is tailgating the hell out of me. It is headlights straight in my rearview mirror. This will really be a first impressions drive here, guys. Pulling up a hill right now, being easy on the clutch, making sure not to slip it too much. Not too bad. I'm gonna roll up the windows here. Probably getting a bunch of wind noise. I'm gonna slow it down here. Doesn't feel too bad so far. Definitely feel the weight back there. Only giving it like a quarter throttle. Really doesn't seem to have any trouble getting up to the speed limit here. Ride feels very smooth. The SI rear suspension, I think, is key to towing something with this kind of tongue weight, or doing a bike rack off the back, or anything with this hitch, because if I had the factory sport suspension on here, I'm pretty sure I'd be riding on the bump stops because the rear is so soft from the factory. So doing this SI rear suspension swap, you have the rear stiffness you need to put a bunch of weight over the rear tires and loading the rear suspension, that you won't be driving down the street like a Carolina squatted truck. Honestly, it really doesn't feel too bad. It's definitely noticeable, but the car feels like perfectly adequate to pull this type of weight. Of course, I'm just tooling around mostly on flat roads right now. This car will be put to the ultimate test later in this drive. I'm going to be climbing a pretty steep hill, and then I'll show you how the engine braking does on the descent, which I'm not expecting to do very well, which is the only bad thing about this car is, you know, I'd tow this kind of weight on this trailer with my 2010 Civic LX Sport, which was 100, you know, it was less horsepower, it had the R18 engine, and it was a lighter car overall. It was about 250 pounds lighter curb weight than this car. So this car is a bigger car and more suited to handle this type of load versus my other smaller car. But I never had a problem with that car. It seemed to pull it just fine, but the engine braking was so much more on that car due to the throttle tuning and the throttle body closing all the way when you got off the throttle, that you could go down pretty steep hills and leave it in second gear and not have to touch the brakes much, even with a 1,000-pound trailer hooked up. But we'll be putting that to test because we're gonna be going down a pretty steep hill for at least a mile. And we're gonna be pulling uphill right now. Let's do an acceleration. I'm only half throttle right now. There's no need to go full throttle. That was maybe quarter to half throttle, just revving it out a little bit to get that power out of this K20. But really no issues. I'm pulling a rather steep hill right now, fourth gear. Can still accelerate uphill here with all this weight. Can hold 55 miles an hour, 60 miles an hour up this hill. So really no complaints. I mean, yes, it would be easier to buy a truck, obviously. There was a lot of work that went into putting this hitch and doing the wiring to this car. However, once you get that out of the way, you know, I'm gonna be towing a trailer 1% of the time I'm driving this car, which is like you buy a truck and you commute to work in it and do all your stuff with your family, and you probably tow 1% of the time with it unless you're buying a truck specifically to tow. But if you're dailying a truck, it really doesn't make sense unless you need to tow a significant amount of weight, like a trailer or something that holds a car. But if you have little toys like dirt bikes, jet skis, four-wheelers, for example, you can get away with daily driving a Civic, getting high 30 MPG, low maintenance costs, you get the Honda reliability and the powertrain for 99% of your driving. Then you can hook up the trailer every other weekend or whatever and yank the quad around and still go and have fun with your buddies. You see, I'm not saying this is a replacement for a truck, but I'm saying that if you do not have an absolute need to haul something that's 1,500, 2,000, 3,000 pounds behind you, there's no reason you can't go with a $26,000, $25,000 Civic brand new like this and spend a little bit of time and a few $100 to put a hitch on it, still haul the toys around once in a while when you want to go have some fun. So impressions on suspension, you know, when I put the SI suspension on, obviously the rear was a little more rough and you can feel the bumps more, and it made it a lot more fun to throw around in the turns. But with this weight on the rear now, it's really making it nice, soft, and compliant when I'm driving. So it is really pleasant to tow with. No complaints with the way this car rides right now. Like I said, it's still sitting pretty flat with the front axle ride height and the rear axle ride height with how stiff the rear suspension is. And I'm going up and down hills right now, and I'm not having to really downshift and rev it out to 4,000 RPM just to get by. It seems to have a good amount of low-end torque with this 2-liter. Obviously, you'd have more with a 1.5 turbo. If you want to add a hitch to that car, the SI would have even more power. This is the lowest power trim Civic you can get, but the key here is the 6-speed manual. If you're going to try to tow something like this with a CVT, you're probably going to reduce the lifespan of your transmission pretty significantly. The only wear item in the 6-speed manual is the clutch, really. You have synchros and everything, but those should go hundreds of thousands of miles, you know, 200,000-300,000 before you have any problems. 2010 Civic, I got 210,000 miles out of the original clutch before I sold it, and it still had plenty of life left. And I was towing quite a bit, 1,000-pound loads, going to Home Depot, getting landscaping stones, tons of stuff. I definitely had over 1,000 pounds yanking around with that car many times. Never had a problem with the transmission or the drivetrain hauling that kind of weight around because I had the 5-speed manual in that car. There really is no wear items, like I said. As long as you baby the clutch, you're not going to cause any kind of excessive clutch wear. If the clutch is fully engaged, obviously you're not going to have any slipping unless you have a really worn clutch. You'll learn real quick when you're towing a trailer. If this car was a CVT, I probably would have avoided putting the wiring in it because I probably wouldn't be hauling a trailer around. Maybe if you have a dirt bike on a trailer and you have, you know, 500-600 pounds weight back there, but I have over 1,000 right now with me in the car. So the 6-speed manual, I think, is key to making that work reliably. Trucks are just so expensive right now, it's absolutely insane. Someday I definitely want a truck when I get my own enclosed trailer and want to tow my S2000 to the track, but for right now, I got some family members that still have a truck and trailer I can access. I'm gonna hold off as long as I can on buying another vehicle, especially a truck. I would still miss daily driving a manual, so I wouldn't want the truck to be my daily driver. So like I said, you know, the price of trucks are insane. It's going to be a huge cost savings if you can get by with something like this. You're going to want to make sure you still have some tongue weight up front, ideally 10% of your load. That's why the hitch is rated for 200 pounds tongue weight and 2,000 pounds pulling capacity, because it's 10% of what the hitch is rated for with its pulling capacity. It's 200 pounds. So the car is definitely not rated to tow 2,000 pounds. Driving for about 15 minutes now. Let's check out how my fuel economy is doing. I got a fresh tank and reset this right before I started driving, and it's showing I'm averaging 26 miles to the gallon right now, which is about 4 less than I would normally get without the trailer. I usually get around 30, and this is showing 26. So I was expecting that to be a lot lower. So just another point of, you know, hauling unnecessary weight around with the truck being heavy itself. You're not gonna get this kind of fuel mileage out of a gasoline truck. Maybe something lighter like a Tacoma or something, but this seems like it's a really high number to be hauling a quad around. So I'm going to be leaving it in second gear the whole way up the hill here. Let's see how it does. We're going to start our climb right now, and as you can see, we're just going to be winding up this mountain. Speed limit's 30. I wouldn't really want to go faster than 30 even without a trailer, because some of these, actually it's 35 as you see right there, but some of these turns are incredibly tight here. So I'm only giving it like 10% throttle the whole way up here, keeping the RPMs higher, definitely keeps the engine in its better power range. I'm having no issues whatsoever at hauling this up this hill. This is Like I said, now I'm getting into the really steep parts, pulling straight up the hill. As you can see out to the side there, I am going straight up the mountain here. Nothing but up, up, up. You know, even in second gear, if I wanted to accelerate right now, I can even go to third, you know. Third might be a little tall for this speed. It looks like it could still hold 40 miles an hour in third, giving it like half throttle, but dropping it back to second, I'm gonna have no problems going up this hill at all. All right, we're arriving at my buddy's house. I'm gonna do some riding and then I'll film again when I'm leaving and going down this hill to see how the car does with the engine braking. All right, we just got done with a real good riding session on the Rincon for a few hours. Now let's go down this mountain, see how the car does. Get some AC going. That will only help me have some little more resistance for the engine braking downhill. So we're probably going to keep it in second gear all the way down. You know, as I mentioned in other videos, the stock engine braking could be improved with K-Tuner. I do have a K-Tuner V1.2. I'm just going to be saving that for the last mod I do to this car after I get everything else done to make it the ultimate daily for myself. Mainly because there's a risk of it voiding your warranty. So I don't know 100% if that's true or not. There's tons of opinions online. People say if you flash the ECU and flash it back to stock, they can always tell it's been flashed at least once in its life. So. And anyway, enough talking about K-Tuner. That'll be a future video, but I'm just lightly tapping the brakes here, sitting around 3,500 RPM, holding 30 miles an hour down here. The engine is doing a little bit to help for sure. Like I said, if you had a CVT, you'd probably want it in low gear right now, just to keep the RPM higher, to give you a little bit of engine braking. But in stock form, it's doing just fine. You know, the feel going downhill right now would be no different than if I had 4 other 250-pound dudes loaded in this car. So just very light on the brakes right now, but through all those pretty steep grades, it actually did really well. Such a advantage to driving this 6-speed manual transmission, as you have almost full control over everything that's going on. You can see the Rincon back there. Look at me in the eyes. There we go. We've made it to the bottom, guys. Do a quick little pull here. Sounds good. Feels great. Couldn't be happier with the setup. Appreciate you guys watching. If you made it this far in the video, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Hope you guys found all the content I shared today with you valuable. Definitely recommend tackling this project if you want to make your 11th gen Civic the ultimate daily driver and do a lot more things with it than you can from the factory. So thanks guys for watching. Check out my other videos I mentioned in the video description if you haven't seen them already. Subscribe to the channel if you're new here, and I'll see you guys in the next one.